Welcome, everybody, to today's regularly scheduled agenda meeting. Today is Thursday, February 5th. We have 8 items on the agenda. One item was pulled, so that's why it says 9 on the agenda, but we have 8 since the second item was pulled. So we have a full agenda today. Before we get started, it is noted in the agenda that items 8 and 9 will not be heard before 11:30 this morning. So if you're here for, well, actually, just number 9 is closed session, but if you're here for the Northern States Power, the LRTP transmission line, that's not going to be heard until 11:30. It won't be heard before 11:30, I should say. So with that, we will first do attendance, and Commissioner Partridge.
Here.
Commissioner Hom.
Here.
Commissioner Tuma.
I'm also here.
And I am here as well. A quorum is present, so we can get on to the business of the day. Ms. Winter, if you could introduce the first item on the agenda.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. Item number 1 is docket number G008/M-25-43 in the matter of CenterPoint Energy's 2024 Conservation and Optimization Status Report, 2024 Demand-Side Management Financial Incentive, 2024 Eco Tracker Report, and 2025-2026 Conservation Cost Recovery Adjustment. The question before the Commission is, should the Commission clarify its November 20th, 2025 order? Staff has no further comments, but is available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Winter. If parties could turn your cameras on, if you're online, or if you are here in person, if you could come forward, and we'll just do introductions quickly, and we can dispose of that, and then we can get to Commissioner questions. There are no opening statements.
Good morning, Chair Sullivan, Commissioners. Ethan Warner with CenterPoint Energy, Eco Regulatory Manager.
All right, thank you. And then I see online, Mr. Fryer.
Morning, Commissioners. Anthony Fryer with the Department of Commerce.
Welcome. All right. Let's move first to Commissioner questions, and I'm just going to kick it off with, I think that, in reviewing the docket, I'll just go to Mr. Warner. When I looked at I'm just going to open it up by saying, what is it that you want us to do? Because in thinking about the previous decision, I think about that and I say, it was pretty straightforward. It wasn't a lot of money. It was $60,000 or $70,000, if my recollection is correct. But we didn't want one utility to get an incentive that was in part made possible because of the rebates that were, offered by another utility. And I just feel like that is just a pretty straightforward, we don't want one entity to free ride off of another utility or off of another entity, and that's just a pretty straightforward concept. I don't see it as my responsibility, though, to solve the problem that you have. I see it as, I just see, that's not from my perspective, and I think I don't want to speak for my colleagues, but the order is what it was, and is that's what the principle stands for, is you don't get to make money off of the money that another utility put forward. But I don't know, what do you want me to do about, I can't, yeah.
Yeah, Chair Sullivan. First to clarify, relative to the staff briefing papers, CenterPoint Energy did not make this request to clarify in the hopes that the Commission would weigh in on future matters per se. We really are just kind of looking for that clarity of intent with regards to the order and what it's sort of, we can interpret what it means, but based on what's on the record, when we went back and thought about what's on the record, there was a sense from the hearing that with the program modification that brought our rebates in alignment with Xcel's rebates, this matter was kind of addressed at this point. But when we started thinking through it, we was like, well, this issue is going to potentially come up again as we're doing our planning process. And so I think we're looking for clarity in the intent that, like, as you say, the intent seemed to be that we can't be a free rider when Xcel is offering a geographic-based rebate to our customers, and that seems to imply that we need to match their rebates, which then has implications on.
We needed to hear that a couple more.
That's what your voice sounds like, if you're wondering.
Where was I?
Now we got it. Good job, Mary.
Don't remember exactly where it was, but I think
We can play it again.
we are in taking the intent that is what was the meaning of that disallowance, and I think we were just looking to confirm that or elaborate if there was, some additional context we should take into the future.
I mean,
that makes sense.
I mean, maybe this will be useful to you, but like, I just look at it like, that seems kind of unfair. And I don't think like you were doing it, like, free rider, I don't think that you were doing it in a way that is duplicitous. I don't mean it in that way. I mean, I think you're just like, well, this is what it is, and we're trying to apply the way that we see the program and the incentive. But like, I just felt like, yeah, like that is pretty clear that you shouldn't get an incentive that, at least you shouldn't get a full incentive for what is, you did not pay for the entire thing. And like that just seems to me like an evergreen principle that the company or any utility that's listening could take back and say, well, if we're in the situation in the future where we have, kind of these shared jurisdictions, like maybe we create some kind of mechanism that we'd have to bring to the commission where we split the, like if there's a double rebate going, we split the, how the incentive works. Or, I mean, like, I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but I'm just saying, like, if you're reasonable, we'll listen. But like the underlying principle is that you shouldn't get credit for something that was not entirely of your doing. So that's kind of so when I looked at it, I'm like, kind of the discussion ends there. Like, I don't know, I don't want to create a principle for you guys that then a later commission has to come back and be like, what, we're boxed in. I don't want to do that to a future commission, because I'm hoping to be on that future commission, and or not, but I just don't think that's fair.
Yeah, and I understand where you're coming from, and could say that is fair. I think, and obviously, as I said, if the intent is is what's on the record and there's no elaboration, that is what it is. I think we were just looking at the fact that gas utilities and electric utilities have different cost effectiveness frameworks, and when this sort of plays out in terms of that discussion of the splitting of savings theoretically and different rebate levels, we are going to probably be more constrained than the electric utility in terms of the rebate we can offer. So because it's a complex issue and the conversation will eventually play out, we wanted to make sure we knew as much as we could.
The other thing too is that, and then I'll turn it over to other commissioners, like, I kind of look at it like, and I'm glad that Mr. Fryer is here, but like, Mr. Fryer and the ECO staff, like, they know this stuff better than I do, and they know how to work with you to develop something, and they also know kind of what's going to, I think likely be seen as successful in front of the commission. So I just feel like it's putting the cart before the horse a bit, and I just feel much more comfortable if, we just let the decision stand as it is what it is, and then we'll move forward and we'll figure it out in the future. But that's just kind of where my head is at. Commissioner Partridge.
Thank you, Chair Sullivan. I have a couple finer points to put on this. One is that in your filing and just now you mentioned that electric utilities and gas utilities have a different framework. But I want to be clear that what we were talking about and the geographic consistency rebates are all about the gas side. Xcel Gas offers, let me look at it here just to make sure I got this right. $1,100 for standard air source heat pumps on the gas side for the heating savings. Xcel Gas offers $1,600 for cold climate air source heat pumps for the heating savings for the gas savings only. You offer $400. So what they were doing is giving your customers, in the standard case, $700 to supplement your $400 rebate, and in the cold climate, $1,100 to supplement your $400 rebate. And then in your request for the financial incentive, you were asking your own ratepayers to pay your shareholders an incentive for having motivated the behavior of your customers to install the air source heat pump. If I were one of those customers, which I was not, who would I attribute my behavior to? The one who gave me $400 or the one who gave me $1,100? You don't need to answer that. That's not a question for you to answer. But for me, I would say the one who gave me $1,100 is the one who helped me install that air source heat pump. And if anyone deserves credit for the savings, it should be the one that gave me the $1,100. I think that's really logical and obvious. On the electric side, that's totally different. Xcel has electric rebates. They're not fuel switching rebates. They're for the cooling side. No one has ever indicated that you should match those. Going forward, you will have different assumptions in your cost effectiveness tests. The department will determine baselines, which is their prerogative, and they have done so since the beginning of this program, as I understand it. Xcel may have to adjust their incentives on the gas side to accommodate the new assumptions. You may have to address yours. But I think the principle is that if you come back and you say, I want my ratepayers to pay the shareholders an incentive for the good work we did to motivate the installation of these pieces of equipment that reduce the costs of the overall utility system and provide ratepayer and societal benefits, then you need to be able to show that you are actually the ones that motivated that behavior, because it would be totally imprudent for us to take ratepayer dollars and give it to your shareholders for you providing, a third of the rebate to these customers and Xcel having to step in and supplement those. And I will just add that Xcel did so without claiming any energy savings or asking for an incentive. So I hope that that's clear, and I'm going to hold this up, and Mr. Fryer is going to recognize this as being Xcel's very detailed and very impossible to read technical assumptions that lay out the rebate amounts, the savings they claim on the gas and the electric side. And so you can dive into that and better understand that $600 will go for Xcel electric customers for their cooling side, and no one is talking about that. And that has a separate construct for cost effectiveness, and no one's asking you to do anything with that. What we are saying is that you need to value the pieces of equipment on the gas side in a way that actually motivates customer behavior in order to get a shareholder incentive. And I'm sorry if that wasn't in the order, but our meetings are part of the record, and now I think it's clarified. I don't think we need to change the order unless others feel differently.
It's clear to me. All right. Are we ready for a motion?
Yes, let me find it. Oops.
Take two.
Yes. I move to deny.
All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Mr. Warner. Thank you, Mr. Fryer. And we can now move to the second matter for the day, which is the third matter. All right, Mr. Warloba, when you have a minute, if you could introduce the matter. And before we do that, though, I'm going to turn to Commissioner Hom, unless would you like to?
Introduce.
You okay? Yep.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. Item number 3 includes docket numbers G011/M.25.68 and G001/M-25-68 in the matter of Minnesota Energy Resources Corporation's petition for approval of a change in demand entitlement for its energy system, and in the matter of Minnesota Energy Resources Corporation's petition for approval of a change in demand entitlement for its consolidated system. The questions before the Commission is: 1, should the Commission approve Minnesota Energy Resources Corporation's petition for a change in demand entitlement for the energy system? And 2, should the Commission approve Minnesota Energy Resources Corporation's petition for a change in demand entitlement for its consolidated system? Parties are available, and staff is available to answer questions.
All right, thank you. And actually, Commissioner Homber, what I'd like is for folks who are coming, who are planning to speak on this, if you could just turn your cameras on and just introduce yourself really quickly. All right.
Good morning, Chair Sullivan and Commissioners. Joylyn Huffman-Maligue on behalf of Minnesota Energy Resources Corporation.
Welcome.
And good morning. I'm Josh Bieber. I'm the manager of gas supply for Merck.
Welcome. Commissioner Hom.
Good morning.
Oh, and there, Mr. Okay.
Good morning, Commissioners. Sachin Shah for the Department of Commerce.
Sorry, Mr. Shaw. All right, Commissioner Hom.
Thank you, Chair Sullivan. Before we start asking questions to the Merck and Department on this docket, I would like to make some comment overall demand entitlement docket. Next 5 dockets are all 5 different utilities demand entitlement. So first of all, I really appreciate the department's work. I think we used to have a very long time to evaluate these things, but I think the department did a good job doing it quick, and then we try to see this big picture right before winter season coming in. So, and also I think the department did a great job tracking the federal rate case. This interstate pipeline is outside our jurisdiction. It's a pass-through amount, but over all the comments, I think the department was tracking the federal cases. Being said, I think also I understand this is a nature of the dynamic in this, because utility file this one, sometimes they have to update their nomination hedging based on the weather changes and prediction and forecasting changes. But also we have seen multiple errata filed in this docket, and I have that concern that when I pull out this one from consent agenda, because the nature of the substance, this is a very important docket for the reliability and affordability of the customer, but I wasn't expecting that potential quality of work issue with multiple errata filed. So hopefully we can improve that one, and for the time being, I think we cannot send this to the consent agenda because we need to improve things. And also I really appreciate Commission staff. They step up doing multiple work above and beyond. They are typically doing on this docket with the rate cases going on. And then because I was asking them to do more, so I really appreciate it.
Commissioner Tuma.
Yeah, I appreciate you pulling these off the consent agenda, Commissioner Hom. It was helpful, and I think very timely too. We have been seeing a lot of things happening in the gas area, a lot of international pressures, a lot of regional pressures that are going on that are changing the dynamics of how we look at the costs here. And I thought it was a wise move to pull them off and take a look here, but I think we need to consider, and of course our staff will probably panic when they hear this from me, as we wrap up this heating season, to take a look. You know, a lot of times we don't really look at those costs of gas and stuff almost into the end of the year, where we're ending a year here where I think a lot of people are in some rate shock on their natural gas bills, and so I think it is worth our while to maybe take a 10-year snapshot of where things are at, kind of get Storm Uri in the middle of it, and look at what's happening, because you got these rate cases that are happening, so you're seeing these demand costs go up, and they pass on through to the ratepayers, and we're also seeing the pass through the commodity costs. And there's a lot of pressure there, and so I think there's a lot of accumulative things happening. Rate cases are, one picture that we get in one utility, but I think there is a broader trend going on here that we might want to take a kind of a 10-year look at where these costs have been, just comparatives, so we see that and that can inform our decisions and activities down the road. So thank you for doing this. This is very helpful.
Thank you. Commissioner Tuma. Yeah, also I recommend and suggest to staff during the briefing session that we may need to see more comprehensive picture of this one, not only among different utility, but also the same utility, because there is a monthly PGA filing and then annual PGA true-up filing. So I think hopefully we can have a more timely checking those information. And it does, sometimes the monthly PGA is not that sensitive in different thing, but at least we can see when something is like, as you say, that if there is a price shock, sticker shock, it'll show up on the PGA. So that case, I think our staff can flag it to us so we can see that before annual true-up shows up. So I think I agree with you that I think we have to be more proactive on this one. So I think my intention is pulling out AAA from consent to make sure that we are seeing full picture in different angle among different utility and same utility over the years. But I also, I don't know, actually Marcus will be panicking because we are giving her more work and her staff, but I think we had a weather event this year. I think we have to do it anyway. So I think this is a good time to start it, as you suggest.
Yeah, thanks.
Glad you guys are, I think this is a good suggestion. I mean, one of the things that I was thinking a lot about is how much the price of gas has run up recently and the factors for that. And so I think this is a good, thoughtful suggestion, and I'm glad that you're thinking this way, Commissioner Hom and Commissioner Tuma. Commissioner Hom.
Thank you, Chair Sullivan. So I have a few questions for the company. So first of all, we really appreciate your fast action associated with the Willow River explosion, and then you serve customer well during that time, making sure that they get a heat. I know that they got the heat below what they need and what they wanted, but at least they were getting some heat because you were supplementing their gas. With that compliment, what is the potential impact in that action? Because now, at that time, you are using outside your pipeline gas and then provide that to your individual customer. Will it have any impact to overall cost of the service, or NNG is paying you to make up that difference?
Ms. Hoffman-Malug.
Yes, thank you, Chair Sullivan, Commissioner Hom. This will probably be a question better answered by my colleague, Josh Faber. So, Josh.
Mr. Faber.
Yeah, thank you, Joy. Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Hom. Yeah, from our understanding, Northern Natural was supplying the bottle trucks, which were supplementing the need for the gas in those areas. There is no costs that Merck was incurring as a result of that. Of course, there is going to be maintenance, and they created a bypass for that pipeline in order to serve these communities, but those would not impact the current rate structure or costs at this time.
Okay, thank you. But eventually, it will be reflected in NNG rate when they are filing next rate case at the FERC, right?
It's a black box.
Okay, I understand. Thank you. And then also another question related to the Hermantown explosion. Is it your service area, and then those customers were your customer?
Whoever wants to answer.
Yeah, Commissioner Hom, I don't have the full details on that one. I apologize.
Yeah, that was a housing explosion. I think there is a death involved. That's why I was checking whether it was your service area, your customer, and whether there is any issue associated with your service or not.
Mr. Faber?
Commissioner Hom, I can answer to that. Yes, I believe, I'm just double checking on that. I believe that was in our service territory. And, you know, based on MinOps and things of that nature, things are being investigated.
Okay, thank you. So hopefully, if there is any issue, I think hopefully we can get some update or report from you guys on that one. And you did a great job during the Willow River explosion, updating us quickly and timely. And we are reading in real time. Thank you. Okay, so another question is, as I mentioned, that I was reviewing whole 5 documents, whole different dockets. So I got an impression that Merck is not as active as other utility in the FERC docket in the interstate pipeline rate case. Is it facts, or am I wrong, or are you involved in NNG rate case at the FERC?
Ms. Hoffman-Maluk?
Yes, and I'll let Josh speak to this one, but yes, we are involved. Josh, if there's any further details you would like to provide.
Thank you, Charlene. Thank you, Commissioner Hom. Yeah, Merck is definitely actively involved in the Northern Natural rate case, the Great Lakes rate case, and the ANR rate case. Merck does have a very limited, I guess, they're not impacted nearly as much for the ANR rate case. Merck has few contracts that are negotiated rate, and they are not impacted by tariff rate changes for ANR. But, they are still involved. For Great Lakes, they are actively involved with those discussions. And then Northern Natural as well, where we're actively involved with those.
Okay, so that means you are a formal party in that, and that you are part of the settlement.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any additional questions, Commissioner Hom?
No.
All right. Any additional commissioner questions? Is there a motion?
Yes, there are.
Commissioner Hom.
Thank you, Chair Sullivan. So there are 2 areas the Merck is serving. So there are 2. So I'll make a motion for NNG first.
This is Northern Consolidated is next.
Yes.
Yep. All right.
So I move the decision option 1 approval as a department recommended.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Thank you.
And for the next one, same motion that.
On to part 2.
Yeah. I make a motion
Quoting
to
the old movie Hot Shots.
decision option 1 for approval.
I can't help myself. All right, we're gonna.
I made a motion, yes. Decision option 1.
Okay.
Give us time to laugh at ourselves.
I did. Well, we just, Commissioner Hom, I think the next, okay.
Wait.
Now we're doing consolidated.
Oh, okay. I had some questions. We're doing all of them? No. Just the Merck.
Just the Merck ones.
Got it.
Yeah.
So we just
Merck
did,
has a 2 parts.
2.
So.
Okay.
yeah, Northern, and now we're doing consolidated.
Got it.
Okay, and your motion is decision option
1.
1.
Yeah.
I want to make sure you introduced, okay, yep, we're good. Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. All right, I think we're clear. Sorry for the little hiccup there. Now we can move on to the next item, which will be introduced by Dr. Larson, and it's Xcel Energy's demand entitlements. Dr. Larson.
Good morning, Chair Sullivan and Commissioners. Before the Commission is item number 4, docket number G002/M-25-67 in the matter of the petition of Xcel Energy for approval of changes in contract demand entitlements. The question before the commission is, should the commission approve Xcel Energy's petition for a change in contract demand entitlements? Please note a typo on the top of page 3 of the briefing papers. The number of customers should read 496,808. Parties and staff are available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Larson. Now we'll, if parties could just introduce themselves, we'll start with the department.
Yes, Chair Sullivan, Michael Zychek for the Department of Commerce.
Good morning, Lauren Steinhauser on behalf of Xcel Energy, and I have Justin Holstein on the line as well.
Mr. Holstein?
Yes, Justin Holstein, Manager, Gas Resource Planning for Xcel.
All right, great. We'll move to Commissioner questions. Are there Commissioner questions? Commissioner Hom.
Thank you, Chair Sullivan. So for the company, I read your January 6th update on the 2 picking plan updates, and then the Sibley plant wasn't up at that time, but it was scheduled to be up. What is the current status of that Sibley plant?
Chair Sullivan, Commissioner Hom, my understanding is we'll be doing another update because we're doing monthly updates on that. It'll be coming out in the next couple days, but the plan is for that to be fully operational by mid-February.
So it wasn't available during the price event, during the Winter Storm Fern?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any additional questions, Commissioner Hom?
Yes, I think departments and company has a slight difference in the decision option 6. So if it's possible, we can hear from both whether they can agree on 6A or 6B.
6B, yep. Mr. Zychek.
The department is fine with Xcel's, our alternative 6B.
Okay. Ms. Steinhauser, anything you want to add?
Nothing to add, thank you.
Okay. All right.
I do have a question.
Commissioner Partridge.
Thank you. So this is kind of a bigger picture trend, I think, and I think we alluded to it, but the capacity on really across the different pipelines is becoming more expensive and scarcer. And so as I understand it, Xcel, you all had a reserve margin that was a little below what we typically like to see, so it was below the 5%, and then you've kind of bumped that up to be within that range that we typically like to see. And in doing so, it was quite expensive. And the department mentioned that. And by quite expensive, I mean much more expensive than it had been in years past. And so I think as Commissioner Tuma kind of brought up, you know, there's all these different components of the gas system, and we take them in their little isolated dockets and look at the, you know, impact of this one, then the impact of that one, and that we do want to start maybe putting those all together and looking at them. So I think this was just a really good example. And I guess one of my questions for you is, how are you looking at capacity additions in the future? I think there's pros and cons of waiting and allowing the reserve margin to kind of dip and then trying to catch up. And I think in this case, we saw that it was maybe more expensive to add that capacity this last year than it would have been maybe in years prior to keep that reserve margin up. And I'm just wondering if you guys are thinking about that strategy going forward, about how to mitigate those kind of big jumps in price increases.
Ms. Steinhauser.
Chair Sullivan, Commissioner Partridge, I would defer to Mr. Holstein on that one.
Mr. Holstein.
Chair Sullivan, Commissioners, thank you for the question. We do forecast out. We are looking long term at building capacity, and because the nature of adding capacity to the system, we aren't looking to add capacity for the immediate future. We're looking to add capacity for that longer term when we do and when it makes sense to sort of avoid multiple small projects, which may add to costs. I'll just note a lot of the costs for additional capacity this year is really a function of the ongoing rate cases and the rate impact to that. All of our costs for that additional capacity are either at discounted rates or at the tariff rate.
Commissioner Partridge.
Thank you. I think that's helpful. I think the other piece of this that we haven't brought up yet is also just that we're seeing, it seems, increasing customer demand on the system. And so I think another piece of this overall picture that we probably want to wrap our hands around is where we're seeing the additional capacity needs and what's driving that from a customer level. And so, you know, adding to our list of to-dos for our staff and probably for the department and the utilities too, is that I think really understanding what's driving the additional capacity needs, where the capacity costs on the pipelines are going, which, I mean, just for folks who are listening who haven't been paying attention to this, the FERC rate cases, the increase in costs are astronomical compared to anything we'd see from our LDCs, from our local gas companies. These are numbers that if they came to this commission, we'd faint. And so I think it's just really important that we are really trying to understand as that trend maybe continues, you know, on the customer side, are there things we can be doing and understanding how that's driving those needs? And I think Commissioner Hom and others have said we do appreciate the utilities who have been active in those FERC rate cases because, you know, I think it's really important that stakeholders like yourselves are weighing in and really scrutinizing those requests on behalf of your customers. So that's all.
I'm curious about you mentioned the FERC rate cases and those numbers that we would faint about. I'm curious, are those rate cases, I mean, those are capital costs for additional infrastructure. Is that, and that is not the commodity cost of gas.
Right.
But is that being driven by by infrastructure that is trying to it's being built to export gas to international markets, or what's the driver of those FERC rate cases?
I would defer to Commissioner Hom, who I think has a better idea than I. I'm not really sure what's driving it and how to piece that apart.
Commissioner Hom.
Thank you, Chair Sullivan. No, I haven't done my research on that one. I was going to ask Xcel and CenterPoint. They are our two biggest utilities, so they may have a better insight. Also, historically, we couldn't intervene in the federal rate case because we do not have resources. It's very expensive to intervene in that case. So some other state commission, like Michigan, they're very active in that federal case, but historically we are not intervening and closely following it. And as someone mentioned, it's a black box. They go into the settlement room and they settle the rates. So I don't know at the end of the day what rationale they have their final decision. But that's the good question. If this rate case is for the new pipeline, do we have to worry about existing pipelines rate unless it's a general expense or ROE issue? And that question, I think we need to ask utility. I was going to do some follow-up on that.
Mrs. Steinhauser, can you speak to that?
Chair Sullivan, Commissioner Hom, I'm guessing Mr. Holstein can.
Mr. Holstein?
Thank you, Chair Sullivan, Commissioners. So I think the question is what's really driving the rate increases that we're seeing. I think specifically in general, but also specifically for Northern, the biggest driver is modernization of the existing pipelines, so replacing antique or vintage, what's called vintage pipeline that was installed, prior to 1950. And then there are multiple factors that go into the initial filed rates, which are included in our petition, which are, your ROEs, requests for increases in depreciation, and increasing maintenance costs to respond to new PHMSA rules. So those are the aspects that are included in the rates that are really driving those increases. Hopefully through our participation in the case, the filed rates will not be the final rates. And we would welcome the Commission's participation in those cases at any time.
And these rates are already in effect, aren't they? Because there's an interim rate component to it, correct?
Yes, Commissioner Sullivan. So the rates went into effect subject to refund on Northern January 1st, on ANR and Great Lakes November 1st. So once the final outcome of the case is decided, the difference between the final rates and the filed rates would be refunded to customers.
Okay. Commissioner Tuma, thank you. Commissioner Tuma.
Yeah, and I think you pointed out, I was just curious, trying to make the connection, because I know after Storm Uri, there was a lot of push by NERC and PHMSA and FERC around gas infrastructure, because that's what really, on Storm Uri, brought the system almost to a collapse, both gas and electric. And people died because of it. And so is this kind of that wave of cases I was kind of expecting after we told them you got to winterize your equipment so that when it gets cold in Texas, which I guess they didn't expect it ever to get cold in Texas and Oklahoma, that you can continue to deliver gas? Is that kind of what we're seeing?
Mr. Holstein.
Chair Sullivan, Commissioner Tuma, I think the wave of PHMSA regulations that we're seeing pipelines implement now are from an earlier iteration of rulemaking. I think they were actually mandated after the San Bruno explosion in California, and are just now being finalized. And then, the pipelines would make the case that they performed fine during Uri, but it was a failure of supply, and that those parties should be the ones to winterize. But everybody is making adjustments post-Uri to increase the reliability of the systems.
We may see another wave of rate cases somewhere down the road. Yikes.
All right, Commissioner Hom.
Thank you, Chair Sullivan. I think all these interstate pipeline costs will be flowed through the PGA, right? Company.
Ms. Steinhauser, Mr. Zajac, either. I think they.
Chair Sullivan, Commissioner Hom, I expect that to be the case.
Mr. Zajac.
Yes, I believe so.
So we don't need a rate case for this one, but bill will reflect it, I think, in real time. So I think that's why it's a double whammy for the ratepayers, because we had a weather event. So their February, March bill can be very, very high. And in addition to that one, this rate case is going into real time into the rates.
Okay.
And so I have a little more question on that one. I was going to ask that question in next docket, but since you guys are here first. So there is a difference between renewing and roll over your existing rights of the existing pipeline versus participating in open season. It seems like in open season, you may have to pay kayak ahead of time for your commitment. Is it typical practice, or in that case, what is the portion of the overall cost of pipeline is being prepaid?
Ms. Steinhauser.
Chair Sullivan, Commissioner Hom, I again defer to Mr. Holstein on this one.
Mr. Holstein.
Chair Sullivan, Commissioner Hom. There are different ways to handle an expansion. Our practice typically is to execute a new, depending on whether it's covered under our pre-existing discounts or would be truly new capacity. Our practice is generally to take out a long-term contract which pays for the majority of the expansion, and then if it doesn't, what is left, so to speak, could be covered in a kayak, or the alternate would be to come up with a specific rate with the pipeline provider that would cover the whole cost of the project.
Okay, thank you. In case you pay the kayak, do you get any additional rights, like a rollover rights on certain portion, or do you get any preferential treatment by interstate pipeline since you were original open season participant?
Mr. Holstein.
Thanks, Chair Sullivan, Commissioner Hom. There's no, you don't get special rights for how you choose to fund the project. You get the same rollover rights as guaranteed by the tariff or perhaps negotiated separately in the contract. Certain open seasons would provide you certain benefits if you bid enough capacity, but that's typically in an allocation procedure, sort of a first come, first serve type situation. But once you execute for a project, the method that you pay for it doesn't bestow on us any special privileges.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional commissioner questions? All right, I think we're ready for a motion. Commissioner Hom?
Yes, I'll move decision option 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6B, and 7.
All right. It's pretty clear. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion passes. Thank you. Thank you. All right. I was going to make a bad pun. Cooking with gas. We're moving. All right. The next item. Dr. Larson.
Yes, good morning, Chair Sullivan and Commissioners. Before the Commission is item number 5, docket number G022/M-25-70. In the matter of Greater Minnesota Gas, Inc.'s petition for change in contract demand entitlement for the 2025-2026 heating season. The question before the Commission is, should the Commission approve Greater Minnesota Gas, Inc.'s petition for proposed change in contract demand entitlement capacity, design day, and reserve margin for the 2025-2026 heating season, effective April 1st, 2025. There are 2 late filings. First, on January 30th, the Department filed an errata to response to reply comments correcting 2 mathematical errors affecting the annual cost of the 500 decatherms of system management services. Secondly, on February 3rd, Greater Minnesota Gas filed a trade secret letter explaining its choice of discount rate. Paper copies of these filings are available at the front table. Parties and staff are available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Larson. Miss Anderson. And Mr. Kundert. There he is. And if you could just introduce yourself for the record. We'll start with Mr. Kundert.
Good morning, Chair Sullivan, John Kundert with the Minnesota Department of Commerce.
Ms. Anderson.
Thank you. Christine Anderson on behalf of Greater Minnesota Gas.
All right. Thank you. Commissioner Hom.
Thank you, Chair Sullivan. So in addition to that error, I found 2 more errors in Table 4 and Table 5 for department's comments. So I'll ask that question. So, Mr. Kundert, so do you have your initial comments readily available?
Mr. Kundert.
Chair Sullivan, Commissioner Hom, yes, I do. I have a PDF I can look at.
So first line of that Table 4, there is a arithmetic error there. The difference number is different. That's why percentage is different.
We're looking at Table 4 on page 6 of the briefing papers.
No.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Oh, initial
I
dates,
could,
okay.
I could certainly double check that and correct it.
Okay, thank you. And then table 5, your average percentage, that's caught me initially because that doesn't need any calculation because your average cannot be lower than your minimum. So that number is the average number is really, really low because your minimum number is well above that number. That caught my eyes. That's why I was checking table 4 and 5. And can you see that? Then table 5, your average number is, you don't have to calculate number. That's not reasonable,
No,
mathematically impossible.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I will correct that as well. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. That plus, I think a company just filed explanation about discount rate. There was some concern from the staff that discount rate choice, 8%, was not fully explained, and then company filed that trade secret information, so we cannot discuss the detail of it. Mr. Kunder, based on that information, are you still okay with your recommendation?
Mr. Kunder.
Chair Sullivan, Commissioner Hom, yes, I reviewed Greater Minnesota Gas's letter, and I am.
Yeah, and I had some question for the company, but we already discussed during the Xcel case, so I don't have any more question.
Ms. Anderson, did you want to say something that looked like you were?
Oh, no, I was just going to say my responses would be consistent with what you heard with respect to kayaks and versus higher rates. And the one other piece which Dr. Larson acknowledged in the briefing papers is that in Greater Minnesota Gas's position especially, we have such a comparatively nominal amount of gas that we have less than an infinitesimal amount of bargaining power with these pipelines. So that's why we make the choices we make and manage our portfolio the way we manage it.
Commissioner Hom.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Sullivan. Yeah, that's why I really appreciate department's work on that issue because to me, that's the biggest fish in this. And the department did a really good job on that one. Being said, I think that small arithmetic error made me uncomfortable reading through the whole thing because that's how I read things when I see very small mistake that can trigger going into more in-depth and discussion. So that made me nervous about 8% too, but since that was resolved, I think now I'm good. And also, yeah, I agree with you. I saw your net NPV calculation and all those things. Yes, I think you made a right choice for the ratepayers.
All right. Any additional commissioner questions? Nope. Is there a motion?
Thank you, Chair Sullivan. So I make a motion to move decision option 1 and 2.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Thank you to the parties. And now we can move on to Great Plains. Let me find Mr. Andringa, if you could introduce the matter.
Certainly. Once again, good morning, Chair Sullivan and Commissioners. The sixth item on the agenda today is docket number G-004/M-25-71 in the matter of Great Plains Natural Gas Company's petition for approval of changes in contract demand entitlement for the 2025-2026 winter heating season. Question for the Commission today is, should the Commission approve Great Plains' proposed demand entitlement levels and cost changes? Staff notes on January 30th, the Department and Great Plains filed additional comments related to the previously approved 2024 to 2025 demand entitlement quantity and reserve margin amounts. Copies of these filings are available at the front of the room. Based on the information provided in those filings, staff will note 2 corrections to the briefing papers. First is on page 9 in table 6 For the 2024 to 2025 heating season, the total entitlement quantity should be 34,436, and the reserve margin should be 8.71%. The second correction is in the staff comments on page 16. The second paragraph referencing the demand entitlement quantity can be discarded as there is no change from the previous year's approved quantity. Neither of these corrections affect any of the decision options before you today. With that, I have no further comment, and the staff and parties are available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. If parties could just announce your presence. We'll start with Mr. Kundert.
Chair Sullivan, John Kundert on behalf of the Minnesota Department of Commerce.
All right. And I see three other people on the camera. If you could just introduce yourself for the record.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ashley Uppis with the department.
Good morning, Commissioners. Bradley Davison, Regulatory Affairs Manager with Great Plains Natural Gas.
Thank you. Your mute is on.
Excuse me. Good morning, Commissioners. Sean Nusma, Great Plains Natural Gas. I'm the Director of Gas Supply.
All right. Thank you. All right. Commissioner Hom.
Thank you, Chair Sullivan. For the company, same question for you. So, company, are you actively, as a party, involved in any natural gas interstate pipeline rate case at the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission?
Mr. Davison?
Yes, Chair Sullivan. I will defer that to Sean Nusma. He would be able to speak more into that.
Mr. Newsom.
Yes, Commissioner Hahn. Yes, we are actively participating in Northern Natural Gas's ongoing rate case.
Thank you. And for the department, so all the filing you made it the last few weeks, based on this, any update, do you have any change in your recommendation? Can we just do the what the briefing paper says?
Mr. Kundert?
Chair Sullivan, Commissioner Hom, yes, we do not have any changes to our recommendation, and I do apologize for the errata.
Commissioner Hom. No, I think I'm done. Thank you.
All right. Any additional questions? All right. We can move to a motion.
Yeah, I'd like to make a move decision option 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion passes. All right. We are on a roll. We are now up to, I think this is the last. Nice. Yeah. All right. Mr. Andringer, if you could introduce the last matter for the on the gas issues here.
Seventh item on the agenda is docket number G-008/M-25-72. In the matter of CenterPoint Energy, Minnesota Gas's request for change in demand units. The question for the Commission today is, should the Commission approve CenterPoint Energy's request for a change in demand units? Staff and parties are available for questions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Let's start with introductions. Mr. Luce.
Good morning, Chair Sullivan. Jason Luce with CenterPoint Energy. Answer any questions on the NNG rate case and defer to the other experts on your screen there and any other questions.
Thank you, Mr. Luce. All right. Let's start with Mr. Kundert.
Good morning, Chair Sullivan. John Kundert, representing the Department of Commerce.
All right. And the other folks, if you could introduce yourself for the record.
Good morning, Seth Merritt on behalf of CenterPoint Energy.
Good morning, Commissioners. Lynn Bear for the department.
Good morning, Crystal DePuccio, Manager of Gas Supply and Procurement for CenterPoint Energy.
Good morning. Michael Young, Gas Supply Management Manager for CenterPoint.
Welcome, everybody. Let's move to Commissioner questions. Commissioner Hom.
Thank you, Chair Sullivan. So yeah, it's too easy to ask about existing rate case, so I'll go different way. So you meant there was in briefing paper there was a mention about Northern Lights open season for 2027. So and then company said you will evaluate for the future option for that. So my question is it for your natural growth, or why do you need additional capacity in addition to rollover rights or rolling over existing one, given that I think any new construction will be very, very expensive?
Mr. Luce.
Chair Sullivan, Commissioners, that would be a question for Ms. DiPuccio.
Ms. DiPuccio.
Thank you, Commissioner Hahn, for the question. And every year, we obviously evaluate our reserve margin, and we are continuing to grow. So yes, to your question, it is natural customer growth that we're having, and that obviously is not declining year over year. So each year we evaluate that, and obviously we try to mitigate those expensive costs as much as we can, staying in line with the reserve margin that we would like to have for our customers.
Okay, thank you. So it is not for any specific large industrial customer. It is for natural growth in your service area as a whole.
Ms. DiPuccio.
That is correct. Thank you, Commissioner Hom. Yes, it is just evaluating our customer growth, natural customer growth. We continuously grow year over year. Statistically, we've shown that any time that we are doing that and adding additional capacity or cost to our customers, it is just strictly for our customer utility growth.
Yeah, and also, I don't know, you have a very short-term option because some utility have overcapacity. We already discussed few utility today. They have overcapacity beyond their need, but they had to get it because that way they can get a discount. And then they are typically releasing the capacity for temporarily until they need it as a recallable basis. Have you considered those options, not knowing these potential transitions and potential lack of growth? So I don't want to go into the forecasting issue in depth, but I think, are you evaluating other options, including our NGR options?
Who wants to answer that? Mr. Luce?
Chair Sullivan, Commissioner Hom, I can at a high level say that yes, NGIA goes into planning for sure, as well as in a year from July, I guess we'll have our first gas plant as well. So those are tools that we'll be using as well to plan for the future.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Once again, I had this discussion with our staff that I think we have to connect all those three dockets, this demand entitlement, resource plan, and NGR docket, to making sure that we are closing every open end, making sure that ratepayers getting the best deal out of the whole thing. So hopefully, if you decide to move with this open season, and we may need a more detailed explanation and your comparison of alternatives to make sure that our ratepayers are well protected in your decision-making process.
Mr. Luce.
Thank you. That makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Partridge.
I would just add to the three processes that Commissioner Hom just mentioned and add in the eco process as well, as we kind of mentioned. And I don't know if Mr. Fryer is on, so I'm looking at Mr. Tegelin, that if you can communicate that really making sure that the additional capacity costs are embedded within the cost effectiveness framework, and then that opportunities through eco are included along with NGIA as well. And then for Ms. DiPuccio, I think, do you have a sense of what customer classes are driving the growth?
Ms. DiPuccio.
Thank you, Commissioner Partridge. I would say that it's overall. I can't specifically give you any defined percentages or whatnot, or who it specifically pertains to, but we look at everybody, obviously, when we're evaluating. So we could definitely get y'all some more information back on that, or when we give y'all the analysis of how we participated in the Northern Lights 2027 open season. But we are evaluating all customer classes when we're looking at expansion.
And I have one final thing to say, which is to people who aren't here. So it is me just yelling into the wind. There's no one here that needs to hear this, is that demand entitlement dockets are so important to get a sense of where the gas system and gas sales are going. And so we have a lot of advocates that come and want to participate in very specific dockets about gas infrastructure or about, how we need to completely change the gas system. And it is to my frustration that they do not participate in these dockets, and we are living in a divorced reality where we have demand entitlement dockets where we see continued increases in sales and continued need for additional capacity on the gas system. And then we have conversations that are totally divorced from that reality that talk about, sometimes go so far as to say we need to start wrapping up the gas system and getting rid of infrastructure. And I wish we could all live in the same shared reality in so many different aspects of our society, but particularly in this one where, the utilities are seeing increasing demand across many different customer classes and are obligated to serve those customers and their essential energy needs. And so we need to really be grounded on the reality of what's happening with customer demand and customer needs for this resource when we talk about next steps on policy related to the gas system and infrastructure. So that's just my
I'm really glad you
speech
said
to no
that,
one.
because when I was reviewing these entitlements, I had the exact same thought. The exact same thought. I mean, just look at the increase in using. I mean, staff can attest that I was asking those questions about the growth. And I had the exact same thought about the divorced reality that we see in front of us. So,
Zach lost it. Ashes. Honey locusts.
all right.
A prophet in the desert.
Commissioner Hom.
Thank you, Chair Sullivan. So I can do some preview for next round of demand entitlement for next year. Then I think I can focus on this load growth issue, and then that means I can go into detail of load forecasting, which is my expertise in education. So that and all out of those are more technical issues. This year I couldn't get into a lot of it because I saw it at the last stage, but maybe I can track in the earlier stage and I can see more detail of it, and then we can do more in-depth analysis into it.
Yeah. All right. Do we have any additional questions, or are we ready for a motion? All right, it's motion time. Commissioner Hom.
Thank you, Chair Sullivan. There are so many, so I'll just do it at once. So I'll make a motion to move decision option 1 through 17, all of them.
That's pretty clear. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Luce. Thank you to the department and CenterPoint for your work. And we can now take a short break. We'll be back at 11:30.
Grab a sandwich or something before we start at 11:30.
Oh. we ready? All right. Welcome back. Welcome back. Is that working? Red. It's red, but okay. Welcome back to our last issue for the day. Mr. Panay will introduce the matter, and then we will get to the last, the second to last issue of the day. The last matter will be a closed hearing. So, but Mr. Panay, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Item 8 on today's agenda is two docket numbers CN-22-532 and TL-23-157, and it is in the matter of application of Xcel Energy for a certificate of need and route permit for the Mankato to Mississippi River 345 kV transmission line project in southeast Minnesota. There are 4 questions before you today. Should the Commission adopt the administrative law judge's findings of fact, conclusions of law, and recommendation? Should the Commission determine that the environmental impact statement is adequate? Should the Commission grant a certificate of need for Xcel Energy's Mankato to Mississippi River 345 kV transmission line project? And lastly, should the Commission issue a route permit for Xcel Energy's Mankato to Mississippi River 345 kV transmission line project? I just want to make a few remarks. Since the filing papers were submitted on January 21st, there are a number of submittals in the docket also, namely on January 27th, Commissioner Tuma submitted 2 separate decision options.
Mr. Panay, I think there's a problem with the mics.
Microphones.
Folks in the back can't hear.
I have green here.
And my microphone,
Was not very.
it just sounds dead. There we go.
Oh, okay. Well.
We should
Start again?
Start over.
Okay. Good morning, Commissioners. Chair Sullivan. Item 8 on today's agenda is 2 docket numbers, docket number CN-23-532 and TL-23-157. It is in the matter of application of Xcel Energy for a certificate of need and route permit for the Mankato to Mississippi River 345 kV transmission line project in southeast Minnesota. There are 4 questions before you today. Should the Commission adopt the administrative law judge's findings of fact, conclusions of law, and recommendation? Should the Commission determine that the environmental impact statement is adequate? Should the Commission grant a certificate of need for Xcel Energy's Mankato to Mississippi River 345 kV transmission line project? And lastly, should the Commission issue a route permit for Xcel Energy's Mankato to Mississippi River 345 kV transmission line project? I just have a few remarks. Since the staff briefing papers were filed on January 21st, we had a number of submittals into the record. Namely, on January 27th, Commissioner Tuma submitted 2 separate documents, revised decision options totaling 4 revised options. Xcel Energy submitted a response letter to the draft route permit and proposed decision options on January 30th. And Xcel also provided some additional detailed maps about the proposed revised decision options. And lastly, the other day, Commissioner Tuma submitted a combined decision option with a proposed motion. It is a proposed motion. And I submitted a supplemental explanation for permit condition 6.5 in introduction of how that came to be added to the draft route permit. I have copies of the combined motion, the decision options, also the detailed maps, and I also have some other maps that if Commissioner Tuma decides to go there, we'll distribute. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Panay. What we're going to do is we're going to move directly to Commissioner questions. When we ask a question, if you could just, for the first go around, introduce yourself for the record. There's a lot of parties on the matter, so I'm not going to make everybody introduce themselves since that would take a little while. So we will just, when a commissioner asks you a question, if you could just introduce yourself for the first time. So with that, we will move to commissioner questions. Commissioner Tuma.
Yeah, and thanks. Very in-depth docket, so I just want to give you a kind of a lay of the land of how I want to walk through it, just so that you're ready. So we'll kind of do just some opening discussions, give Ms. Herring a chance just to say some things, just to start off with. Then I want to just look at the 3 pinch points that I identified, just so you can kind of see what I'm seeing, and so you should understand where I'm at. We'll talk a little bit about a process that I'm kind of rolling out. It's a combination of different processes that we've done, but it's a permit process of addressing some of those pinch points that'll hopefully address some of the struggles we had with the one last week, and of course the Potter Mertens one that we did on the Minnesota Connect one. And so trying to see if we can find a better process that can focus us in on some of those pinch points. And I think that'll become very critical as we move forward under the new 216I, because of the way we're going to be doing routing. It'll be nice to have a process. And so we'll be talking about that a little bit and trying to make sure we're working closely. I really appreciated some of the suggestions that you put forward on that. And then we'll touch on the tree replacement and the cost cap issue. Ms. Bump will talk a little bit about the raptor nests, just to cover what that is through, and then we'll walk through the decision option at the end. So this is one where feel free to interrupt me and ask questions. You know me, I'll start getting into a zone. So, whack me with the gavel. You got it right there ready to wake me up and get me focused. But before just openings, I do want to say a thanks. Mr. Davis did a very, very good financial, or not FEIS, the environmental assessment. I really liked your table. If you haven't figured out, I really liked table 626. It was very helpful. It really clarified an area that I'm very familiar with. And so when I was able to see that laid out, that really helped me crystallize it. And then I liked being able to take that over to the Madison Lake area so that we can compare that Madison Lake and northern right just out of Mankato. That was very helpful to make it clear why we want to go the north route and interfere with those residents on County Road 27. And so it helped me figure that out quite well. And so I'm carrying that kind of into the process that we'll talk about later. But Mr. Davis, very, very good FEIS. It was a stellar job. ALJ Ann O'Reilly, I think, did a wonderful job. I read all the transcript and the discussion. It was a challenging route to figure out all the different maps and segments that were going on, but I think she made it very clear and wanted to make sure she was always asking good questions, trying to make sure she knew where she was at. So I really like that when they start really focusing in on the route. I think ALJ O'Reilly did an excellent job. Ellen Heinen, is that how you say it? Heine? Ellen, I have to tell you, like I said, I read all the documents, and I kind of have this. My sisters are from Colorado. They talk about the 1500s, the mountains out, the real hard, tough mountains to climb. And my nephews were always into climbing, so they were proud to be of that 1500 club. They climb the tallest mountains. And in Minnesota, we have the 100-mile club. Okay, which is you got Minnesota Connect, you got the one up the Minnesota reliability that's been done. We going to be having the Big Stone to Alexandria. This was one of that club. And I have to say, so far, you've done, I think, one of the most stellar jobs of putting a route together. And as you know, I tear them apart. And so when I look through it, I really appreciate.
I've never noticed that.
Yeah, I really appreciated the thoughtfulness that you put it into it. Yeah, and so so far you can at least brag amongst your fellow sighting folks that in the 100 Club, you're in the lead so far. So thank you for your hard work, Ms. Heine. I don't know if you have Ms. Herring. I mean, if you have any opening statements, you can. Otherwise, can we just start diving right into it?
Feel free.
Good morning, Chair, Commissioners. Valerie Herring. I do have an opening statement, but I'm happy to just move to questions. I think that might be a more efficient use of our time.
So let's dive right into it. If you could get the map up for County Road 27, I don't know who's putting the map up, but I just want you to see there's 3 pinch points that I'll be talking about. There's what I call County Road 27 in Blue Earth County, so it's Blue Earth County 27. There's a segment there from the Secaucus Singing Hill Trail up to County Road 26 that when I went and looked at the route, looked at the record, read the testimony of Dustin Mueller and the Mueller family, took that very seriously. There's also people that live along the Secaucus Hill Singing Trail down there in the Mankato area. And so that was very clear to me early on in reading the record that this was to be a pinch point. I have to be honest with you, it was a little bit of a bait and switch because I assumed Orinoco was going to be the most difficult area. So I spent a lot of time driving around Orinoco. If you get down there, Two Sisters Cafe up in Orinoco, very good place to eat. Stopped there a couple times and with my wife driving around. So it was a little bit bait and switch, but now we can kind of focus on very small pinch points. These are, we're talking less than a percentage of the overall route is we're dealing with here. And so what I saw, and if you could zoom in, I don't know who's doing the mapping here, but zoom in on the where you see Blue Earth County there and the lines, it would be helpful. There is two residents, hard to kind of see on this map, but as you go down from where the lines converge to the north on 27, there are two residents that are right next to each other right on the road. And the one on the right, the kind of two red triangles, there's a yellow triangle underneath it. That's the Mueller residence, and then their neighbors across the way. So it'll scroll down a little bit. Other way. Scroll up, yeah, this would be. There you go. So those two residents are really close to each other and create a very distinct pinch point. But there's also, when you dive across the road with a 345 kV line, it really does look ugly. I have to drive the Brookings to Hampton area all the time, and so when you get those spaces where they're jumping all over the roads, and so if we're going to really impact them, and you talk to them at one of the hearings, they also had written comments, but there wasn't clarity after you talked to them. You said, "Well, we'll talk to you. We'll see if we can get a solution." There really wasn't nothing in the record, so I'm left without much to go on. So I asked you some more information on this, and I think there's a possibility we could actually build a couple options that are less expensive. And so that's what I've asked us to do in this pinch point, is to look at two options. One to the west does run along kind of a wetland complex and a wood complex, but would not interfere with agriculture as much. If you go to the east, it's a lot flatter. It's open land, and there's a property lines that we follow, but to effectively do what the blue line does, you would have to put a pole in the middle of a field someplace. And it's not clear to me if even though there's property lines, whether in fact those are one field. It's just hard from the maps to determine that. And so that's kind of what I'm suggesting we take a deeper look, because I know you indicated in your filings back to me at least a couple of these landowners are looking at buy the farm. We can avoid that. That would be wonderful. I do know the person in the very south end of it who uses the Secaucus Singing Hills Trail was really disappointed. We're putting the route on there, but we could get off it sooner if we do the red line. And so I don't know if that helps in that area. So this is the pinch point that I'm seeing. We obviously did not have any designated routes, but Mr. Davis, I think all the information we need from an EA or from environmental assessment, the FEIS, is already here. We know what's there. You've laid it out. It's just a matter of, for us, doing a little closer look and have the applicant design it, like I suggested, using your 626 table and then just talking to the affected landowners. I really don't think we had to supplement the FEIS in this situation. We know what's there. It's just a matter of exploring with the landowners in that community where maybe an alternative route would be. Would you agree with? There's really not anything substantial happening here from
Mr.
FEIS
Davis.
statement.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Tuma, Rich Davis, Commission staff. I don't want to commit us to it 100% just yet, but I think there's ways that we could, even if we had to put in an addendum or something along those lines for it, I think we could get to that. I don't know that that all of that was spelled out in the EIS specific to if those were the actual anticipated alignments with those alternatives. We'd probably have to adjust some of the data just because there's certain things that are counted based on setback off the alignment and things like that. But generally speaking, yes, we have that information and that data as to the resources and things that are out there.
I mean, it's just a better way of just organizing for a more specific, very small segment decision, so that everybody knows what we're talking about and what's available. So I appreciate that.
Can I ask a question, sure. Commissioner Tuma? When thinking about these two alternative routes, it's kind of like the reverse of what we were talking about last week, where, you know, we would be actually taking it out of existing right-of-way and moving it, you know, to the middle of a field. Do we have a sense that, I didn't see it in the record, but maybe I missed it. I mean, is this something these landowners are interested in? Or, I mean, like right now they have a transmission line going down their land. I mean, going down the right-of-way right now. Are we, I am in general, I'm supportive of when you're trying to develop a kind of titrate it in and dial it in. But like, do we think we might just be, is this possible that we would be just adding some complexity here when it's kind of already solved?
Yeah, I think we are adding some complexity. I'll look to the applicant. Mm-hmm. You know, obviously, all these landowners where these lines touch are part of the existing route. Even the farmer who would be imposing on both sides are noticed, they're involved, mm-hmm. they know this route, but it's not in their field. And so it's a big difference.
And this is, I mean, right now, this is a smaller, like it was a 115 kV line or something, right? So it's 69 kV, oh, so it's quite a bit small. So the 345 is going to have a much bigger footprint for these folks, so.
And that was the Muller's concern, is that when you look at, if you look real closely at the map, you can see where those two red dots, that's their outbuildings. Just to the right of it is their building. I mean, it is within a little over 100 feet away from where that 345 kV would be. And it's really tight. I sat there in their neighbor's driveway for a long time, and even if you would jump across the road, it really is not reducing any impact for them or and just increasing the impact on their neighbors. And so,
to be clear about, since it's in the right-of-way, will have to be.
It's in the existing right-of-way, but I think you have, in that space, you would have to get more right-of-way for that 345 kV. Is that my understanding?
So the houses can't be in the right-of-way. They would have to be.
They would be out of, this one would be out of it, but yeah, they would be very, very close. Mm-hmm. And all of the areas that I went and drove, I have to say the Mullers are going to be the most dumped on.
It looks like it just looks like they're inside of the right-of-way if it's that orange dash for the 345.
I'll let them
Oh,
respond.
sure, yeah.
Chair Sullivan, Commissioner Tuma, I think it might be helpful if Ms. Heine describes recent communications that she's had with landowners in this.
Mm. Sure. It would be very helpful.
And if you just introduce yourself for the record.
Yes, thank you. Ellen Heine, Xcel Energy. I'm the Siting Land Rights Permitting Lead for this project. Chair Sullivan, Commissioners, just wanted to give a little, first of all, before I forget, I will note the orange dash line that's shown on there is the route width. So that's beyond the right-of-way that we're talking about. So that's all inclusive of all the stuff in that area. So to Mr. Davis's point, we didn't specifically quantify data outside of that orange dashed line. So I think that's one thing we just need to make sure that we have the data for those areas that are outside of that. I will note that.
Does that mean that the FEIS does not
specifically address the alternatives?
Okay.
But we have the
data's there.
Yes, there's a GIS system that has all kinds of information in it. We just need to clip it to match it to what we're looking at here. So we just haven't done that yet. But then I will note on that segment, we definitely were aware that this is a difficult section. There's a 69 kV GRE line that is here, and we would be double circuiting with that line. There are some locations where the existing 69 kV line is in front of a house where we've proposed to shift to the opposite side of the road because it's it's not, this houses aren't very far set back. To Commissioner Tuma's point, there's not always a room to get very far away from folks in this area. So the alignment doesn't, in some cases, takes the 69 kV width and crosses the road and moves it away from where it currently is located. And then also we'll note all the landowners, I think there were 6 along this stretch that had homes that were quite close to the road. So our land agent team has done outreach, sent out information, has specifically done some additional outreach to a few of the landowners along there. And the 2 landowners on that that segment that we're looking at that are on the east side have had conversations with agents about what they would want in this case, where the line to go there. However, that said, if you decide that one of those alternatives is better, we're happy to study that and come back with additional information. But just wanted to note that we definitely understand that this is a concern in this area, that there are homes along that road, and a 69 kV line is much smaller right away than a 345. So definitely willing to do a little bit more investigation here.
Thank you. And the next, unless there's any more questions on this one, I'll jump to Tonka Lake. I always like saying
Commissioner Hom.
Thank you, Chair Sullivan. Yeah, I think last week we had a very tough situation that some landowner complained that the new shift is detrimental to them. And they say they didn't get an agreement, but I think the applicant says we got an agreement with the landowners. So I have a concern that you just only talks about the landowner has a direct impact on this issue. You may need to expand your discussion with a little bit beyond those landowners to make sure that we don't have that situation like last week.
Commissioner Hom, you're always jumping ahead. We're going to talk very detailed about the process that is in here. So
okay, thank you.
Hang on to that. Let's just get through the pinch points. But yeah, that's a very important, or that's what I want to address a lot and talk about. Right. Just really quick, if you can put the Tatanka Lake map on. This is just a classic route with expansion. And it's a interesting area when we get to it, and we'll talk about it a little bit. So Tatanka Lake is part of the Waterville area. It's the larger of the lakes there, just west of Waterville. And so the existing, now that's a 115 kV line, runs very, very close to the lake. It actually crosses over Mr. Loesch's property. Literally, his house is on one side of the power line and his shed is on the other side. So I think that was the intent of that funny little jog that you had there, to kind of get a little bit away from those houses along the lake. But what was interesting as I was looking at this, there's a house, if you look where the red line is, right kind of in the corner on the far left there's a house there. That's John Morshing. And right now, the 115 runs down below his house. He's up on a hill looking across the lake. Not a big hill, but it's, and the line kind of runs behind his house. And I thought, gee, if I would want a line, as I drove by it, I would want it on the other side of the road. And I was worried, that's going to be his neighbor's not going to want it on there. And then I thought, well, then we're going to move it a little further, and the guy on the other side of the road is not going to want it. When I look at Beacon Maps, what's interesting, if you follow that red line, it lasts just the last maybe 10% on the right-hand side. So as you get up to going to the east, only 10% of it is not owned by a Morshing. They're all Morshings, okay? Janelle was at one of the hearings, and somebody asked her to comment. She didn't. I really wish she would have, okay? Because I really would have liked her insight, because she owns most of all that property around there. Actually, one of those big housing developments along the lake is actually named, I think, Morshing North Shores or something like that. So it's one family, and I guess if I wanted to be nice to my cousin John, I would put it behind his house so he doesn't have to look at the 345 kV. So that's what got me thinking. If we just expand this route you could probably find a less expensive and more appropriate line that runs from there. I don't know if you have had any conversations with the Morshings and whether there is a possibility for this. Again, the red line is only just showing what you saw. I'm not saying that should be the alternate alignment. Your alignment, I think, is passes mustard, but here's a chance, I think, to make it better. And so what do you know?
Yes, Commissioner Tuma, we actually did get, our land agents did reach out to the landowner and got some feedback. There's a little bit of a delay from when they first reached out, but did hear back from him that he was concerned about that original alignment and had a couple of ideas for alternatives that due to the timing of when we heard about that, to keep the record as unconfusing as possible, we were committing to working with him on coming back with an amendment. And then you kindly proposed a route expansion in that area to accommodate what he and Xcel have been talking about. So we have had some conversations with that landowner and intend to work through that with them and figure out the best alignment.
Kind of figured that would be the case, but that works out. And of course, Ms. Bump, this will be, we don't have to come up now, but when we talk about nests, actually there are two eagles, at least one eagles and maybe one osprey nest on the existing structures right at the end of the lake here. So that was why the eagle thing came up, and we'll talk about that later, but this is where it was. Any questions on this one, or I'll jump to the last one, which is the harder one.
I don't have any questions. We're good? Okay. All right.
Now, if you get the next map up, this is South Faribault. Wish it was Florida. Of course, it's gonna be warming up now, so I'm not. And we need the full scape on this one, just because I want you to kind of get a sense. This is going to be very hard, and what I'm suggesting may not produce anything, but I think we owe it to Divine Mercy Catholic Church to take a different look. I was worried about my extra time in purgatory if I didn't make a closer look at this. But if you can see in this map, there's a bunch of black lines there along the green line, kind of by that 45 there. That's the Divine Mercy community. It's part of the city of Faribault, but it's kind of off on its own with some cornfields and fields between it. But Divine Mercy it started in 2002 as a combination of the German, the French, and the Irish Catholic churches finally quit fighting with each other and came together and created one parish, and they built their brand new church south of town. And so it runs right by there, and it does run by a lot of residents along the road, that County Road 19. There's like 9 houses there. Then it follows a township road where it passes by, I think, 5 other residents. Many comments from this area of concerns of the impact. And so, Ms. Heining, as I look at this and go back to the bigger picture, I want to see the bigger picture here. And this is the way I'm going to break it down. I'm going to go from the east to the west. And so when you see the green line, you decided to follow the south route west or east of the connector on the way over to North Rochester. So this is the beginning of the line. It's going to take you to North Rochester. And I totally agree. I asked you for more information on this to make sure we're justifying going through Greenfield here. One of the big justifications for doing that is that we're leaving that second circuit open, so that in a future need for a 345 kV, we're going to have a second circuit that could run from North Rochester to Faribault West substation. I think that's a smart thing to do, and so we're trying to preserve that second circuit, and so I get that. But as I sit there and I looked at this area, and I understand why you picked the north route through here. It'll be less expensive, but here's where I break it up. I break it up in 2 sections. So you see the red and blue line there. If you think about it, it looks like it's a river, but actually, if you look right where it says Rice County, there's a railroad track there, and that railroad track continues south and follows right along that red line. And Commissioner Sullivan, you'll know where this railroad track is, because if you follow it the other way, about a half mile off the map is the Depot restaurant where we ate with Commissioner Burns from Iowa. So that's in that area, following kind of the same corridor as the Straight River, and so the Straight River and the railroad tracks in this area is very close. And so if you think about the area west of the river and the railroad tracks, The south route has very little human impact, but it does cross wildlife management area. The north route has significant human impact with all those houses. You go to the east, okay, and if you start from the connector going between there, the south route would cross over a golf course and a whole bunch of little residences that are in there. But the north route, there's only one place that's by it, and actually it's south of it and has a really nice mature windrow in front of it, so it would block the view. So there's very little human impact when you get to the east of the Straight River. So I understand what you're doing. So, but I was trying to see and explore the concept of could we do, and we've done this a lot. Like I said, I drive under the Brookings to Hampton line a lot. We did a lot of that jumping around through Dakota and Scott County. And so where I'm thinking if we could take the southerly route and run across that's already been studied and see if we can find a connector that makes sense along the Straight River, following an existing right-of-way with the railroad track. And so that was my mindset here. I will say that this is not going to be easy because there are landowners that are impacted. There's a landowner that's right there where it comes together, where you see Cabot Avenue and Glenview Avenue come together. There's a house right there. There's already an existing power line there. You know, how do we deal with that existing power line to preserve the extra circuit for the 345 in the future? We could put them together now, but we have to change it. There's a lot of things that we need to evaluate. And then there's also the Olson family, which I would want to know a lot about. They have the property that's right where the red line meets the north route there. They own a lot of that property. About a quarter of the blue line would be on their property. Maybe they like the blue line better. I don't know. But you do have to you probably have to do something with the golf course because you have to avoid the golf course. So there's just a lot of challenges here. So I don't have a lot of hope. But like I said, I think we owe it to Divine Mercy and the city of Faribault and that crossing there to maybe explore a better way. Other point that I want to make, that even though it looks like it's crossing a lot of the wildlife management area, that is a road and already an existing corridor there. So you're following an existing corridor where if you look where it's just to the east of Divine Mercy, we'd be opening a green field just right next to the WMA. So you'd be impacting that WMA. You know, I don't know if it's apples to apples, but there would be still an impact to the WMA. So that's what I'm seeing. Like I said, I don't hold a lot of hope, but I think it's worth studying.
The impact of the WMA would be more significant, I think, in the southern route because you're going through those two chunks of it.
Unless they co-locate on the same structures, then then you're following through an already existing right of way. But then you start having the issue of a future Second Circuit to the Faribault South. Then you're going to have to move it south anyways. And so yes, you could impact it. You could avoid it. There's a lot of cost questions.
What voltage is that? Is that also a 69?
So a number of things. There's not an existing transmission line on that piece.
Well, there is. It's on the map. It exists. So when I'm going from.
Oh, is that the? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm mixing them.
Yeah, and then it turns south down Cabot Avenue.
One thing I just want to make sure I clarify before I forget, the Second Circuit that we're preserving, that's on the other end of segment 2 that was over by the North Rochester substation. So there's not an existing 345 that we're not taking the second part of on the Faribault side of this segment. So I just want to make sure that was clear. This would be a single circuit 345 kV line in this segment here.
Right, that's what I said.
Okay.
Maybe I say it in a wrong way. I'm saying preserving your right to do a Second Circuit at some point in the future, but be correct. From West Faribault to North Rochester, single circuit 345 kV is what you're building, with the potential for another circuit at some point in the future. And
it is not designed as double circuit capable.
Well, it said that in the record, and that's what I'm trying to. I thought I read that was one of the reasons that you chose to do this.
There is the Hampton to North Rochester line is double circuit capable, and that was the piece over just north of the North Rochester substation, where initially we had proposed at the earlier stages in this project, talked with the planning team, and that looked like an opportunity to get on that Second Circuit for 2.5 to 5 miles, depending on the route, onto that line because it's already there and it's built. Then as the MISO Tranche 2.1 projects came out, one of those projects is the second 345 kV line from Hampton to North Rochester. So that circuit is needed a lot sooner than initially we had thought. So we're no longer able to take that second position on that line, which is almost just directly north of the North Rochester
The
substation.
plan right now is from North Rochester to West Faribault area to just be a single circuit 345 kV structure without the potential for a second circuit on that structure. So that essentially actually helps out in some ways in this area because now you could co-locate on the same structure. And that's, I guess, the next question I have. You could co-locate on the same structure that line running through the WMA.
Yes.
That's helpful. Even more worth exploring, I guess, is where I'm at.
I guess the only question I have there is, I mean, why didn't you double circuit it, or why didn't you, not double circuit it, but why didn't you make it double circuit eligible? It feels to me like that
Be nice knowing that.
is always a win, considering how much easier it is to do existing right-of-way lines than it is to greenway lines. But
Commissioner Sullivan, the reason that was not proposed is that was not the project that MISO approved. They approved a single circuit 345 project. That was the project that was studied through the MISO process.
But I mean, like the eligibility to put an additional line on in the future, like it feels like that the company could go outside and say, well, today it's a single circuit line. That's what MISO approved. But in the future, we're going to have the opportunity. We'll just hang the arms off. You know, there'll be nothing there, but they'll be there. And if 10 years from now, a future LRTP shows we need another 345 in southern Minnesota.
Commissioner Sullivan, and the reason that we didn't propose that here is there are a lot of opportunities where we're proposing to either double circuit with existing facilities or underbuild those facilities, and so those options would go away with that different structure type.
Commissioner Hom.
Thank you, Chair Sullivan. So what is the cost differential for your pole, whether single circuit or double circuit ready?
Commissioner Hom, I would have to ask our construction folks, and I'd need a break to do so.
Yeah, if you're taking a break sometime later, because I agree with you that if we are putting in something, I think we should fully utilize it. That double circuit ready was a great idea during the CAVEX 2020, and now everybody's getting discount from Minnesota because we did it. So now MISO-wide planning is utilizing it. So it's not only benefiting us because we are minimizing a lot of lines because of it, but also everybody's getting economic benefit from it.
Mm-hmm. I think it might be something worth exploring.
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear from the construction folks what they think on that. So,
those are the pinch points I wanted to talk about. I don't know if you have anything to add to it. I appreciate your willingness to explore this one too. This is not going to be easy, but thank you for taking the extra effort. And let's talk about process next. Now, Commissioner Hom, for the Blue Earth and the South Faribault areas, I put in there a new permit condition 6.6 that requires you to go out and do outreach. I modified both the two areas as you suggested, so we aren't doing a public meeting in the area, but you are going to meet with the affected landowners and you're going to strongly encourage them, even if they're for a particular route, to communicate with us. That was the problem we had last week, is the Hickses, who were most impacted positively by it, never said anything, and so we're left without much said. And so just because it might be going in somebody's favor, you should say, oh, you still need to comment because we'll have a decision. One of the reasons we wanted a public meeting in the community is so much effort, but the public meeting then will be this meeting that we're having as a permit amendment, Section 10 permit amendment adjustment, not a 216I action. But the difference is, I just made it very clear, we want that same amount of notice to go to those affected landowners as the statute would require. So everybody's getting as much notice as possible that this new change is going to go on, possibly, and that the landowners need to communicate to us. either in writing or they can come to the hearing that will be in front of us. And so the idea is that the FEIS, in my mind, is complete. The information is all there. You can look on the maps. You can find the information of what's going on in those particular small little segments. It's just a matter of laying it out and putting it in. I like like I said, I like the chart, 626 and something along those lines where you're breaking down how many trees are going to be potentially lost versus homes that are impacted, all of those things that we have to balance. And after you do your 6.6 meetings and consultation, you can then file a Section 10 permit amendment application to us. If you can demonstrate in that the landowners that are along that particular segment have all consented, the farmer who might have to put the pole in his field over by County Road 26-7 says, yeah, I like my neighbors, I'll put it there, okay? I don't know if that'll happen, but if it does, then it goes right to you, Commissioner Hom, consent calendar, and done. If there is still some discussion and dispute, and you look at the balancing, and you look at it and say, oh, wow, it's so much less expensive to do this route if we do that, and we also reduce the human impact, we're going to propose this route, or we'd like this route now that we look at it a little closer. That would come back to us, and we would have to make a decision, but hopefully with the encouragement that landowners have communicated to us. And we'll have probably a hearing that looks a lot like the Potter Martez or the Larice and Hook Hicks thing, where landowners will come in and we'll have to make that tough decision. But at least we're making it with solid information and of what the differences are. And so, and I know that there's probably a little confusion because your last one came back and says, oh, this is a Section 10 amendment, and the answer is yes. And so, do you understand the general process that I was trying to set up with the decision options?
Ms. Herring.
Commissioner Tuma, yes, I think we have a good understanding of the process that you're envisioning for this, and we do intend to, make sure that we've noticed all the affected landowners, and as part of the filing that we're going to be making as a permit amendment, including an analysis of the different impacts of the different route options that are on the table, the cost impacts of them, as well as, actual filings from the affected landowners, whether or not they're for or against the different options.
And some of my staff was saying, we should have the public meeting, and I struggle with that because I like them, but I also know they can be very difficult in these when you get really down to the nitty gritty. So I am deferring to your expertise in the field to make sure you're having those conversations, that we're not having clandestine meetings with one group to work against the other. At least that's how Mr. Hicks felt, or Mr. Hooks felt about the situation. We just want to be open and transparent as much as possible so that these landowners can communicate. And like I said, I'm wanting to hear from Ms. Morshing. That's a different one, but I'll watch that separately through the process. But I really do want to hear what, the Olsons have to say, who have that property that is really impacted there. And also the landowners to the south, where all of a sudden they didn't think there was going to be a power line there, and now there's going to be a power line down by the river. And so I want to hear those things, and you really encourage them to say, we do want to hear. They really do have a desire to get your opinion. It may not decide in your favor, but we want to hear. And so that's the process that I tried to set up with the decision options. And I apologize for it turning into 8 pages, but it's what it is.
Commissioner Hom.
Thank you, Chair Sullivan. Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Tuma. So, being said, I have some question to Mr. Davis. So, I also want you to be comfortable because you are the one who drafted the final EIS, and I want to make sure that if you're creating addendum, I want to make sure that you are comfortable what you are doing. That's one thing. Second thing is, now we are potentially discussing about the route outside the proposed route. Do we need to go back and discuss that with the Tribal Historical Preservation Office, particularly along the river? I think a lot of our human habitat happen along the river historically. So I was wondering whether we should go back and communicate with the people on this issue.
Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Hom. I can answer the first one. I think we're comfortable. I would like to make sure that we're We'll just have to work out the details on how to handle the analysis and things like that for the potential impacts to resources, whether Xcel is going to come in with something and then we would review that and be able to comment on it and use that as an addendum to the EIS, or whether we would write that addendum. And personally, I could go either way on that, as long as they're working with us on it, which I assume they would be. And I would say yes, we would contact TIPOs. We'd actually probably notice it out to all of the technical reps for all the different state and federal agencies that we normally would for an application, just because this would have been outside of what they would have reviewed originally. Or it could have been in some cases. Some of them do expand the areas that they're looking at. They may go 1 mile in some cases for like threatened and endangered species. So this would have been included. The area would have been included in there. But I would send it around again just to make sure that we have input from them specifically on certain areas, because sometimes they'll have projects in those areas and things like that that they may be working on, especially with, not saying that they do, but with having a WMA close by, you know, the DNR might want to know about that, of any potential expansion work or anything like that, especially with the railroad right there. Sometimes they do acquire those areas for trails and purposes like that. So,
Commissioner Hom.
Thank you, Chair Silva. Thank you, Mr. Davis. I think the reason I'm emphasizing on TIPO issue because the imbalance in the resource. I think the state government and federal government agency has enough resource, but TIPO has very limited resource. So we have to be more proactive and communicating above and beyond your typical. You said it. Yes, we have to notify them, but there's a typical notice. I was asking you to do a little bit above and beyond your typical notice to flag it to them, because we are doing this because it's outside our original route. So that kind of additional communication help those people who are short in the resource can pay attention to the issues.
Yeah, Ms. Herring, you know, this is a permit amendment, so now we're past, you issued a permit, now you're a permittee, and so you're working with EIP and our staff, and so that was my expectation under normal circumstances. And this, you're going to be working closer with them, talking about who should be notified and where the notices should be going out. Nothing that Mr. Davis said is of any concern for you, or?
Commissioner Tuma, no. I would envision that this process would be handled like any other permit amendment, where we put together the environmental impacts of the different route options that are on the table, obviously put forth what we believe is the least impactful route, and make a case for that. So that's how that part would be handled, and to the extent that we need to notify state agencies or other parties, we are certainly happy to do so.
Mr. Davis.
Chair, I just wanted to respond to Commissioner Hom's question. I agree. I think there would be, just in what I'm envisioning, there would be additional outreach, if you want to call it that. Potential in most cases, generally it'd be the applicant that would be reaching out ahead of time to have notify TIPOs of the project and things like that. And then a lot of times they have a second follow-up, and we would likely have something similar to that, like I would send out an initial email to make that first contact, and then either follow up with subsequent emails or make phone calls or whatever we needed to, because you are correct, the TIPOs are flooded with stuff, or they sometimes can't get responses that they need from higher ups and things in the review times that they have sometimes. So anything we can do to make them aware of stuff and help them out, we'll absolutely work on that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. I have a question for Dr. Racco. Welcome, Dr. Racco.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Steve Rocco from the department.
I just wanted to go back to the question I had asked before about the double circuiting of it. Not that this wouldn't be a double circuit, but it would be double circuit eligible. And I'm just wondering if that would change the modeling that the department would do. I mean, I'm just kind of a little bit vexed because it just feels to me like it's an extra arm that sits there for the future in case we need it. But I'm wondering if the department models things differently, or if there's, I mean, if the department sees it a different way and you're like, no, we're not worried about it. I mean, I'd just be curious what your initial thoughts are.
That would represent for us a cost increase, and when you're comparing all other alternatives to this project, they would now look better because this project got more expensive. But when we did the alternatives analysis, all the other alternatives basically were screened out, and we were left with the 345 kV project. So it wouldn't impact things for us.
It wouldn't. Okay. Commissioner Hom.
Thank you, Chair Sullivan. So a little bit of follow-up to it. I think also there was some discussion and concern and comments from public whether this project is for the Chicago or versus it is for Minnesota utility and people of Minnesota. Along the line, I think this long-range transmission planning at MISO was done to support region-wide reliability, not necessarily economic issue. So in your understanding, will this benefit Minnesota people if this line is either built as it is or the Second Circuit ready, assuming that Second Circuit is being used to export more energy to Chicago, otherwise that potential energy can be curtailed in the Minnesota?
Dr. Racco.
If we assume we build this line and later on string a Second Circuit and are shipping that energy to Chicago, what that means is energy that was being curtailed now isn't. So you reduce curtailment, and the utilities will be making money off those sales, and that profit on the sales would then flow through back to customers, investor-owned utilities through their fuel clause, and for co-ops and municipal utilities, it automatically flows through because there is no profit incentive on the owner side.
Commissioner Hom.
Thank you, Chair Sullivan. Yeah, I think that's why there is some misperception in the public comments. Because this line is going all the way to Chicago doesn't mean that we are building it for Chicago. This line is being built for Minnesota as a part of the system. And clearly we are getting not only the reliability benefit, but also we can get economic benefit from it by over surplus energy whenever our wind was blowing in full speed. And these days we are curtailing a lot of those.
Dr. Racco.
That's correct. If you look at the petition and our comments, we copied one of their charts which shows reliability benefits all across southern Minnesota and most of Wisconsin.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Racco.
Mr. Chairman, next I have tree replacement, a little more thorny. I don't know where you guys are at with that. I do know this has been a desire of the chair that we look at a replacement program, and it probably wasn't built out, so you understand it. And of course, utilities go right away to hiring the most expensive contractor they could find. No offense, that's just what happens. We see it. That's why I put in the new language in my decision options, seedlings and saplings, okay? We're not envisioning you cutting down a 100-year oak tree and then saying I'm going to replace it with a 100-year oak tree. So we're on page 7 of my proposed motion. It's TUMA modified applicant 12D. So it's a modification of the Appleton to Benson permit. So the original language that was there was the Appleton to Benson one. If you remember, we did with the replacement of trees. Now, there are quite a few less trees between Appleton and Benson than they're going to be on this route. There's going to be quite a few trees that are going to be replaced or impacted. And so I think I'm trying to build out, and I hope she doesn't get mad at me, but I think what the chair's vision here is not an expensive project where you look at the landowner and say, yes, I want a, 5-year, oak tree put over here. I mean, I think it's mostly, we're looking at, you talking to the Rice County Extension, okay, and working with the local, Warsaw Willing Workers, or there's even one in Rice County known as the Big Woods 4-H Club, okay? Perfect one to go work with, to, identify trees. I get trees that the Extension does this quite often, where I can go down there and I get free trees. I got 8 dogwood trees planted in my yard that I got free from the Extension, okay? They were just little saplings, and it's taking a while for them to grow. They're finally now 3 feet tall, and that's after 2 years of, pampering them, okay? So I think that's what the chair is envisioning, some sort of community event where we're going out and saying, yes, we cut down 1,000 trees in Rice County. Okay, we can plant 1,000 trees. Let's work with the Big Woods 4-H Club, and I can even give you Lisa Derrick's number, okay, from the Rice County Extension Director down there. That's what I'm thinking about here, and everybody comes back with $1,000 a tree. Okay, so that's what we envision, and so when I look at the decision option as we modified it, okay, and I know this for a fact where it says at least 90, and you replaced it with 14 days before pre-construction. Chair Sieben got a little panicky when I said, look, we normally look at these things. Mr. Davis and Mr. Penne would look at whatever plan you have 14 days before construction and say, no, this is not what I intended, okay? And then it would be up to them to make the call to bring it back in front of us, delaying construction. And so that's when Commissioner Sieben, if you remember, came back, and that was 90 days. So that as this is developing and maturing and kind of flowing through our process of, I guess, practice and procedures, okay, that we can look at this so it doesn't delay construction, but it's not $1,000 a tree. And so that's why she suggested 90, okay? So I'm looking at that going, now that you know what we're doing, and I know it's building from one permit to the other, are you okay with 14 days and the risk that it could delay things? I will point out that we did make a change to the cost cap where we ask you to kind of break out the tree costs so that we're getting at least an estimate early on in the process. But I just wanted you to know the full history of that and why it was 90 days. Are you still comfortable with 14?
Ms. Herring.
Commissioner Tuma, I think if we looked at the 14 days and we thought, maybe it would be beneficial if we moved that to 45 days. It may provide additional opportunity to review those plans and then make any changes that we need to make prior to that.
Mr. Davis, you okay with 45 days? Because we'll be leaning on you,
Mr. Davis,
Mr. Penne, to say, wait a minute, it's not 1,000, but $999, still not going to probably catch mustard.
Chair, Commissioner Tuma, I'm fine with 45 days. It'd be similar to what we've done in the past. We've changed it now, but what we've done in the past with our native prairie protection plans and review timeline and things like that on wind projects.
And you took the DNR out. I don't know if Ms. Bump cares all that much. I mean, I get what you're suggesting, that you want to kind of keep it simple. We do too. And like I said, if you're going to go down the road of let's work with the local extension to plant a bunch of little seedlings, I'm good, but explain to me your reasoning behind taking out the consultation.
Ms. Herring.
Commissioner Tuma, our intent wasn't to take out the consultation with the DNR. It was just in there twice. So we had consultation at the beginning. I do think
I see.
The DNR. Oh, yeah, the DNR.
This is a condition that was, recently proposed in this docket. We have a lot of questions and concerns about the practicality and feasibility of doing this. So to the extent that there's any flexibility that we can put into this condition, if this is the way that the commission wants to go, that would be beneficial. We're still trying to figure out how exactly we're going to implement a tree replacement plan for a project of this size and scale.
And I would say, think volunteers, think the local 4-H FAA clubs, simple, not complex, not expensive contractors. I'm sure you're going to count some of the number of trees. That's probably the additional thing they're doing. You got to count some trees through the area. That's what we're asking you to do. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you're 1 off or 10 off, I don't think Commissioner Siemens gonna get mad at you. She just wants to honor a good friend of hers that she cared about, and this is in honor of her that she's doing this. And it is very much around, let's get the community involved in planting some seedlings, I think. And so I think that's her frame. And so I would encourage you to stay within that frame and not try to say, oh, that bad commission is making us do all this expensive stuff.
And can I just add a little bit to this? Like, I recognize that utilities seek compliance and they seek specific things so they can specifically comply. But I do live in Mankato, and there's been a project on 22 the last year where they've moved a transmission line and they're building some stuff. And it's the number of trees that have been cut down are just unbelievable. This is a small project. It's just unbelievable. And the way that I come to this is I just think about it just like what you just said. Just plant some saplings and some trees and, it's not a $10 million program. This is, get out there and get some good PR out of it, but plant some trees. And it doesn't seem to be like, I understand from the utilities perspective, you're like, well, tell us exactly how many trees we need to plant and we'll plant them. Or don't do that. I get that, but it's like not trying to be, and from my perspective, I'm not trying to be overly burdensome. I'm just like, there's a massive environmental impact from just the physical creation of this infrastructure. And let's try to remedy some of that. Commissioner Partridge.
So I apologize, I didn't get this filed in time, but I have a decision option to provide. I think it was before I saw your latest, Commissioner Tuma. I think it's very much representative of what we're saying here, which is a recognition that these infrastructure projects take trees down. When we take a tree down, we should replace it. And I think that's a logical, rational thing that I think people can agree to. But also recognizing that you are probably not the most efficient entity to be doing that work, and the cost for you to do that work may be far higher than for another entity who knows how to do that and does that regularly. They may be able to do that more efficiently, more thoughtfully, and cheaper for everybody. And so I'm going to offer this that could go nest inside of your existing decision option, but just to provide greater flexibility to say that the replacement plan may include a proposal to fund tree replacements through the DNR forestry programs or another similar public program, and that those plantings could be prioritized in counties where the line is located, so that it just would allow us, I think, having that alternative plan in comparison to what it would cost for the utility to do it would inform us, not only for this particular project, but going forward, what is the most efficient way for us to make sure that when we take a tree down, we put one back up. I just think that data point, even if we ultimately don't decide to go with that, but that data point may be really informative, but I also suspect it may be a really attractive way to do this and to take it out of the hands of the utility and put it in the hands of entities that are, more expert in planting trees.
I mean, I like the idea of just giving a bunch of saplings to first graders and plant them in your backyard.
Okay, well, I'm going to just object to that as someone who has a second grader.
Might be in your living room.
I think we want these trees to survive, and so maybe not first graders.
Commissioner Hom.
Thank you, Chair Sullivan. So I think we need to supplement some information to this, because this project is not only being paid by Minnesota utility customers, whole MISO-wide customer will pay. So I need to explain to people outside Minnesota. So when you damage a drain tile during your construction of your infrastructure project, or you damage the access road during any kind of infrastructure project, what do you do?
Ms. Herring.
Chair Sullivan, Commissioner Hom, we repair those drain tiles as part of our restoration.
Okay, so when you are installing solar farm, I think it is very common. I think even in every state, you have to restore that land. So usable, or even while they are using it as a solar farm, particularly in Minnesota, we are ordering everybody to restore either pretty original the plants or some way to make sure that that land is protected, right?
Ms. Herring.
Chair Sullivan, Commissioner Hom, I'm not as familiar with solar projects, but I do generally know that we restore the land, yes.
So we are not asking you to replace mature tree. You are cutting mature tree, but we are asking in lieu of repairing that damage, we are asking you to more cost-effective and reasonable way to restore. Nobody wants to ask you to plant things below transmission line. Nobody likes it. So that's why you're looking for different location to do this damage replacement, right?
Ms. Herring.
Chair Sullivan, Commissioner Hom, yes, we appreciate the intent of, the tree replacement condition. Our concerns really were with the practicality of, how do we access areas of a landowner's land to plant a tree when we don't have easement rights over those areas. I think the decision option that Commissioner Partridge has added addresses some of those concerns. It gives us another alternative rather than having to, try and find areas on landowners' land where we're able to plant trees.
Yeah, I agree with you. We are really, really mindful this will be a part of the rate base. So we are trying to find the best way, most economic way to repair that damage. I think we are not asking you to replace mature trees, which will be really, really expensive. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I think that's a really important point, Commissioner Hom. Thank you for raising it.
So
Commissioner Partridge.
When we take a break, maybe we can talk to staff about, because I think this proposed language here wouldn't stand alone, but would go into the existing language, so we can figure out how to fit it in there.
Walk through each of the decision options, so I'll make sure we try to fold that in and remember to fold that in when we get to that spot. Next, if you're ready to move on, is cost cap. That's page 2 of the Tuma motion.
Before we get to a cost cap, we've been going for a little bit more than an hour now. Do you want to, is everybody good? Do we need to take 5 minutes? Or are we good?
I'm good.
Okay.
Well,
let's keep going, and then
we're not that far off, I don't think. Either.
Okay,
Yeah.
We're good.
So just real quick on the cost cap, you had asked for a final cost estimate for the project amount, and then you said 60 days might be too quick, but you didn't tell me what. Maybe I missed that. So I have a blank there in modified 7, your modified 7, so we're trying to capture what you were saying. So what are you asking for?
Chair Sullivan, Commissioner Tuma, our concern with the cost cap as it was originally proposed was that, there wasn't this tree replacement plan condition, so we wanted to make sure that we had enough time to incorporate the costs of that plan into our final cost estimate. So what I would propose for that blank that you have there is to do 45 days prior to the first pre-construction meeting. So that would be the first meeting that we have prior to starting any construction on this project. I think that gives us enough time to make sure we're incorporating the cost of the tree replacement plan, also have closer to final design for the project, just making sure those costs are as accurate as they can be.
Ms. Fazio, did you capture that? And if you didn't, say it again.
Certainly happy to say it again.
And I'll ask you, Mr. Rocco, whether you're okay with that. But
Right. First. Correct.
doing this in segments, so this will be the first of whatever segment that you're going to do. And then this will be probably several months, depending, it could be even longer, just depends on how things go, than what you would have gotten otherwise. Mr. Rocco, any concerns?
Dr. Racco.
No concerns.
Seeing no questions on that, Ms. Bump, come on up.
Ha. We gonna talk about fences?
No, there are no fences on this route, are they? Good, thank goodness. But there are avian issues. So if we go to page 6 of the motion, to Manu 12B, as I indicated when I was driving by lovely Tatanka Lake, looking at the Morshings North Shore Estates, I saw 2 very large nests. Now I understand that they're going to have to get a permit to remove those nests from the federal wildlife folks. That's just their obligation. But as I've indicated in the past, I'm trying to make sure that pre-consultation, we're working through you, so in case things get delayed at the federal side, government shutdowns or whatever is going on. So I just want to make sure you're okay with them and making sure, they'll probably just tell you to fill out the permit. Your staff will probably just tell them to fill out the permit. But nonetheless, I guess I want to make sure that you're consulting with them because there are some nests on the existing structures, and I would hope your staff would be willing to help out on how to mitigate impact on the poor little raptors who may be up there, and we can protect them.
Chair Sullivan, Commissioners, Samantha Bump on behalf of the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. You are correct. The bird nests are protected by Migratory Bird Treaty Act, which is regulated by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. We do have staff that would be able to help coordinate and get ahead of that to hopefully expedite things on behalf of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and if they are, predisposed, not able to answer.
If I was reading your decision option responses, you guys would have no problem with doing that. Is that correct?
Commissioner Tuma, that is correct. We typically do work with the Minnesota DNR for removal of osprey nests if we need to do that. Then there is a permit process for that with the DNR for osprey. And then for any bald eagle nest, that is through the Fish and Wildlife Service, and we would work with them on any of those that are necessary, and that is a typical practice.
Yeah, I thought it was an osprey nest, but I had someone who knows much more about this. It could have been a second bald eagle nest because apparently they do that. They do a partnering nest. So, so I had to correct myself. But she's always happy to correct me anytime I have. That's my
It's your daughter.
Yes. So she gave me the what for on that one. That's all I have on the thing. So I'm ready to walk through a decision option. And if you're ready, and if the applicant doesn't have anything more to add.
Commissioner Partridge.
Yeah, we might want to do that if you guys want to think about some sort of compliance filing on costs.
We can take a 5-minute break right now.
Well, let me just ask
And then
Ms. Herring, would that be something you could consider and it would not cause any significant delay? That's what I'm worried about, so I just want to make sure that we get we're interested. I thought the record, I must have just misread the section. I thought we were building that southern route through Greenfield because one of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the reasons was we're going to get a possible future Second Circuit. So is there something you can imagine that we could do that's not going to delay?
Ms. Herring.
Chair Sullivan, Commissioner Tuma, I think the issue is we have routed this line and, taking care to double circuit this line where we can with existing circuits. So
I understand that, but that we're talking about just having poles between Rochester substation and the West Faribault substation that could take a Second Circuit 345 in case in the future we need that for either reliability or it could even be a major development of solar around Faribault that they want to get to Rochester, and that the developer might even pay for it for that matter. I don't know. There's a lot of things that Second Circuit could give us that we in Minnesota have experienced a lot of positives from, that I think we are just wanting to explore. So I don't think we're saying take any second circuits off of anything. We're just talking about that green field from North Rochester to West Faribault, about that being second circuit ready. Does that make sense? That's the way I understood it.
Commissioner Tuma, we could certainly file a compliance filing outlining the costs of doing so and any engineering concerns. Obviously, I haven't talked to any planners about this impact. I do know that we don't currently have a connection at the West Faribault substation.
Right, you don't, but it's your, I think it's your substation, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and so I'm looking at that, your substation, I know it just goes by it, but I know I read this in the record, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. You went that way so that you were close to the Faribault substation in case you ever had to hook up to it. And so that's why maybe I got confused thinking that was the whole purpose, was to connect North Rochester to West Faribault. But the whole purpose of us going there, we could have crossed the freeway south of this area and avoided, any impact on West Faribault. So, I mean, that's what I had in my brain. So, I mean,
I guess I really want to know why they didn't even, it's just an extra set of arms that could be there for the future. I don't know why it wasn't considered.
Could you?
Dr. Rakow had mentioned, like the cost and there's alternatives, but I guess I don't know. If the cost is going to be, $50 million
right,
then no. But the cost is a couple $100,000. It seems like that's a good way to future-proof the lines.
It's probably somewhere in between there. But could you put some language together in a compliance filing that you're comfortable with while we take a break? And how long would you need to do that?
Probably about 30 minutes, Commissioner Tuma.
That would be good for us because we have things that we could do at 30 minutes.
Oh yeah, we could. We could.
We won't say what we're doing because that'll cause other people to be mad at us.
Yep, but that's a good idea, actually.
I was laughing at it. I know, it's so secretive. Yes, it's not bad.
It's not that secretive.
We'll leave it at that.
Okay, I think that would be good. Commissioner Partridge, did you have another question?
Nope, I was just flagging that for you all.
Okay. Procedurally, what I have to do then right now is, if we are going to move into the...
Well, we could recess and then do that.
We'll recess, but I actually have to... Let me take a 2-minute break to talk to the lawyers. So we'll be back in 2 minutes.
I think we would do the other meeting after.
All right, so what we'll do is we will recess for 30 minutes, We'll come back at, why don't we just plan to come back at 1:30, and then we will get the answers, and then we will wrap this matter up, and then we will go to our last issue of the day, which is a closed session where we'll be discussing an attorney-client matter. So that's what we will be doing. So we'll see everybody back at 1:35, or I mean at 1:30. welcome back. Hope everybody enjoyed their lunch. And now we can, or I hope you enjoyed the time waiting for your lunch. But now we can move on to an answer to some of the questions, and then we'll move to a motion. Ms. Herring.
Chair Sullivan, thank you for the time that we had to discuss this potential for a second circuit for the segment 2 and the questions that you asked. Obviously, we haven't had a lot of time to analyze this potential, but here's the information that I was able to gather in that 30 minutes. In talking with our transmission line design team, adding the potential for a second circuit, those types of structures are a lot larger, taller structures requiring more significant foundations due to their height. It's also a different design than what we've currently designed this segment to be. The very preliminary cost estimates that I received from the transmission line design team is at minimum a $10 million cost adder for that new structure type. We've also had the chance to talk with our transmission planning team. What they've told us is at this point right now, they don't see the need for a second circuit 345 in this area, just given the other projects that are proposed in this area for the tranche 2.1. Obviously, we can't see, 50 years into the future, even 20 years, but what they see right now is not that they don't see a need for a second circuit at this point.
I'll just speak for myself. I let my colleagues share their thoughts, but that answers my question, so that's helpful. Commissioner Hom.
Thank you. Yes, I think I was expecting, in addition to money, there is other things involved. The reason I think I agree with Commissioner Tuma, but also the reason I brought this up is typically annually MISO is asking you guys to update cost estimate. In that process, and also there in the MTAP process, they are asking your opinion about potential lines when they identify need. We are strongly urging you to consider this kind of option to make sure that we are efficiently utilizing right of way. A lot of people are bearing a lot of burden because of this transmission line. So we have to be mindful. That's why Commissioner Tuma is proposing that one. It's likely not useful for this one because it's too late. Well, we may not need it. However, in other projects, you should consider that as an option, and you should push MISO to consider that as a part of an option. They also agree with this corridor fatigue, and that's why I think this has to be part of an option, and then you should provide the right cost estimate to them so they can do a better job in identifying better option.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right, Commissioner Tuma.
So let's walk through the decision options. So working off of the one that was filed, yep. So it would be decision option 1, 2 as is, 3 as is, 4 as is, and then applicant modified 7 with 60 crossed out, now 45. And I don't know if you have the language, Emma, to get up there that was suggested by Ms. Herring, which was okay with the department, which is 45 days from the first pre-construction meeting. That's okay. So on number 7 on page 2. Okay, go back down. Yep. Yep, there it is. That's okay. Yep, just like that. The first pre-construction meeting. Is that correct, Ms. Herring?
That's correct, Commissioner Tuma. I think we did miss number 6.
Oh, yes, I did. Number 6. We do want to have a certificate of need, don't you?
I would really like one.
Yes, it was so clear that it should be. I just went right over it. Thank you. Then 9, and then of course there's the modifications to 9 with Tuma Modified 9A, both Romanet I, which is Highway 27, and Romanet 2, which is the Tatanka Lake expansion. Then Tuma Modified 9B, which is the South Faribault, or as Ms. Getz likes to call it, the Defined Mercy Intervention. So, reduce our purgatory time. And then number 10 on page 5, number 11, number 12, Tuma New 12A, which is the addition of permit condition 6.6, which helps set up the process for dealing with the different possible small segment route alignments. Tuma New 12B on page 6, that's the avian protection language. And then applicant 12C, this is, we didn't talk about this, but I agree with the applicant, the pole construction flexibility. Tuma Modified applicant 12D, which is now going to have 45 days instead of 14 days. Noting that it has the seedlings and saplings, and then I want to add in Commissioner Partridge's language. Probably, I don't know if it can be nested in there, but I think it's, you'll massage that when you get to your order, and so, but it includes the Commissioner Partridge's language. Applicant 12E, which are various minor corrections to the permit. And then 14, which we'll definitely need, which is authorizing the executive secretary to make any corrections to conform to our language. Ms. Herring, am I missing anything?
Not by my count, Commissioner Tuma.
That is my motion, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Tuma, I first of all want to thank you for the amount of work that you put into it. I think it is and I'm sitting here listening to you, and I really am struck by how much time you put into it. And I think that is a reflection of how much you care about the people that these lines are impacting. And as a resident of the Mankato community, I appreciate that. And if that's not seen, it's something that I hope people do see. And I really appreciate that about your public service, how serious you take this. I also wanted to say that this is a really important power line, and I appreciate the company, the work that you've done. I appreciate the department and our staff for all the work that we've done in getting the record to this point. These projects are really, today is really the culmination of what started 6 years ago, and even before that at MISO. And, you know, they are, the power lines are built on, with the expectation that, they're built with recognizing all of the economic development in the state that is going to need these lines. They're built with the recognizing all of the power that is kind of sitting behind them, that is going to be built to achieve our policy goals. But at the end of the day, they're built because they're good for ratepayers. They're good because they lower people's bills. It allows people to have access to lower cost power. And I think it's really, it's exciting for me to see it come to fruition today. And I really thank you, Commissioner Tuma, for all the work that you've done on this. So I support your motion. Commissioner Hom.
Thank you, Chair Sullivan. I concur with you. Yes, I cannot even this close to the Commissioner Tuma's effort to this. This is a huge effort that Commissioner Tuma is spending behind the scene and working on to see people's life when we are making this decision. We are not just reading the paper. And I'm mostly reading the paper that Commissioner Tuma is actually seeing people's life to make a difficult decision. So I really appreciate Commissioner Tuma's work on this. Also, I add one anecdotal maybe or more data-driven information about this transmission line. I think 2010, 2011, MISO approved MVP lines, and prior to that, on Minnesota utility get together and we approved the CAVX 2020 project, and some part of that was an MVP project. Based on MISO's estimate calculation at the time was if you invest $1 to transmission line, you may save about $2. After the fact, they checked, actually $1 investment, we are saving $4. So it is an affordability tool. And in addition to that economic benefit, during the Winter Storm Uri and Winter Storm Elliott, MISO was able to use that line to save people's life. I think ERCOT had a huge problem during the Winter Storm Uri, and we lost a lot of people's life there because they didn't have enough electricity. But MISO was able to using this MVP line, sending energy from one side to another side, and potential blackout got avoided. Right? It's a fact. I think a lot of people already know, but I just want to make sure that our public member to understand how valuable this transmission line is, not just for the state, but for the whole United States. But meantime, we do care about affordability. And this is an affordability tool. Building this transmission line will save your energy bill in overall. So you may not see it because we have inflation. So on paper, you may not see that, but it is going to make sure that your potential bill will be reduced so it doesn't go up as much as with inflation, but it will reduce the cost. Meantime, I think sometimes Minnesota needs energy from somebody else. It's not just sending energy to Chicago. When we have a reliability problem a few years ago, we had to get the energy from Chicago area. That MVP line was able to deliver that energy to us, so we avoided a blackout. I think this kind of information is not very apparent to the public. However, this transmission line is very important for the reliability for Minnesota. So that's why I can support Commissioner Tuma's motion.
Commissioner Partridge?
I don't need to make an independent comment. I will just say I also really appreciate, Commissioner Tuma, how careful you are with these. And I think you can see that how much we trust your judgment, because we know you've gone out and you have looked at exactly where these properties are and exactly how the houses are oriented and where the stream crosses under the road. And I just really appreciate you doing that work. And I hope that the public and especially affected landowners understand how valuable that is. So thank you so much. And I support your motion.
I just do want to thank Mr. Davis and Ms. Heinen. You made that job much easier for me. I really appreciated that. I actually did it. I was expecting a little more challenges and there were not a lot there, so thank you.
So with that, let's move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion passes. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Panay. This is a Herculean task in pulling together the record, so we appreciate that. Thank you, Ms. Gretz, and thank you to all of our commission and department staff and everybody for all the work you've done. So thank you. Now, with that, now we have to do so. We have to ask people to leave. Sorry. And I have to read a, yes.
Before asking people to leave, you should read.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to read it right now.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, I'm reading it. And of course, because I was looking up something for Tuma, I lost my. Okay, we are going to. I'm going to have to call Commissioner Tuma back, but we are going to go off the record. But before we go off the record, I want to move to close the meeting as permitted by Minnesota Statutes Section 13D.05, Subdivision 3B, to discuss attorney-client privilege matters related to the January 26, 2026 opinion of the Minnesota Court of Appeals regarding the Commission's May 18th, 2010 order on the bidding of demand response into wholesale markets by non-utility aggregators of retail customers of certain public utilities. So this is going to require the commissioners to vote that we close. So all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes unanimously. We are now in closed session. Not quite.
Just about.
Okay, so we're going to switch over for a second.